He thought he was about to catch a thief. Jonathan Pierce sat in his Mercedes, rain drumming against the tinted windows, watching the woman who'd raised his children slip into a dark alley at 11 at night. His nanny, his employee of 6 years, Loretta Washington. She carried 2 bulging grocery bags filled with food from his pantry. His wife had been right. The missing cans of soup, the bread that disappeared too quickly, the oatmeal he'd personally counted last week. Jonathan's hand hovered over his phone. One call to the police. That's all it would take. But something made him hesitate. A child's scream echoed from the alley, then crying. Multiple voices. Jonathan stepped out into the rain. What he was about to discover wouldn't just change his mind about Loretta Washington. It would shatter everything he thought he knew about the woman who saved his life before he was even born. The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m. Loretta Washington's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, silencing it before the sound could wake Simone. Her granddaughter had been up past midnight studying for the SATs again. Loretta's joints protested as she sat up. 67 years old, and her body kept a running count of every one of them. The studio apartment in the Bronx was dark and cold. The radiator had been broken for 3 weeks. The landlord kept promising to fix it. Loretta had stopped calling. She wrapped herself in a worn bathrobe and padded to the kitchenette. 5 steps. That's how small the place was. On the table, bills spread out like accusations. Rent, past due. Electricity, final notice. Simone's SAT prep course, $300 she didn't have. Loretta counted the cash in her wallet. $43. Payday was Friday. 3 days away. She'd make it work. She always did. Behind her, Simone stirred. Loretta quickly swept the bills into a drawer. "Morning, Grandma," Simone mumbled, appearing in an oversized Columbia University t-shirt. "Morning, baby. You want eggs?" "We have eggs?" Loretta smiled. "We always have eggs." They didn't, but Loretta would skip breakfast. Again. At 6:15 a.m., Loretta left the apartment. 2 buses and 1 subway. 90 minutes if the trains cooperated. She checked her MetroCard balance at the turnstile. $8.50. Enough for 3 more days if she walked the last 6 blocks. Her shoes squeaked on the subway platform. The left sole had separated last month. She'd fixed it with cardboard and duct tape. New shoes cost $60. $60 was 2 weeks of groceries. The train lurched forward. Loretta gripped the pole and closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter, gone 5 years now. Cancer had taken her slowly, expensively. Then she thought about her husband. 12 years gone. A construction accident. No life insurance. All she had left was Simone. Brilliant, beautiful Simone who dreamed of being a doctor. Loretta would make sure that dream came true, even if it killed her. The train emerged from the tunnel into the morning light. Manhattan gleamed. Somewhere in those buildings, men made more in an hour than Loretta made in a year. She'd never resented it. Not once. Wealth wasn't the measure of a life. Character was. At 7:25 a.m., Loretta climbed the service entrance steps to the Pierce penthouse. Upper East Side, 74th and Park, 23 floors up. The apartment was silent. The family is still asleep. Loretta moved through the space like a ghost. She knew every creak in the floor, every temperamental cabinet hinge. In the kitchen, she began breakfast. Scrambled eggs for Ethan. He liked them soft. Oatmeal with berries for Lily. She'd eat anything as long as it was purple. While the oatmeal simmered, Loretta packed their school lunches. Peanut butter sandwiches cut into triangles, apple slices, carrots, a note in each lunchbox. You are loved. You are capable. You are kind. On the counter, her medication bottles waited. Blood pressure pills. Her doctor had increased the dosage last month. The pills cost $83 with insurance. She swallowed today's dose with tap water and hid the bottles back in her bag. At 7:45, Lily appeared in her nightgown. 8 years old, gap-toothed and wild-haired. "Loretta!" She crashed into Loretta's legs. "Good morning, sunshine girl. Will you braid my hair today?" "Every day, baby." Loretta sat Lily at the kitchen table and began working through the tangles. She hummed while she braided, an old spiritual her own grandmother used to sing. "Loretta?" Lily's voice went quiet. "Why don't you have a business card like Daddy?" Loretta's hands paused. "A business card?" "Yeah, Daddy gives them to everyone. They say he's important." Loretta smiled. She pointed to her heart. "I do have a card, baby. It's right here." Good character is the only card that never expires. From the hallway, Jonathan Pierce appeared, suit already perfect, phone already glowing. He'd overheard the exchange. Something flickered across his face, something that might have been respect. But then his phone buzzed. His attention vanished. "Morning, Loretta," he said without looking up. "Morning, Mr. Pierce." He was gone before she could say anything else. That was their relationship. Polite, distant, employer and employee. Nothing more. Catherine Pierce appeared next. Yoga clothes that cost more than Loretta's monthly rent. "Loretta, have you seen my protein powder?" "Cabinet beside the fridge, ma'am." "Thank you." Catherine paused. "Loretta, we need to talk later about the pantry inventory." Loretta's stomach tightened. "Yes, ma'am." She knew what that meant. They'd noticed. The missing food. Catherine's eyes were cold, suspicious. Loretta said nothing. Pride wouldn't let her explain. If they needed proof of her character after 6 years, then they'd already decided who she was. The day passed in its familiar rhythm. Laundry folded, floors swept. Ethan's math homework was supervised, Lily's reading practice. At lunch, Loretta sat in the service room and ate nothing. She told herself she wasn't hungry. Her phone buzzed. A text from Simone. "Love you, Grandma. You're my hero." Loretta's eyes burned. She typed back, "Love you more, baby girl." At 6:30 p.m., Loretta finished prep for dinner. Chicken in the oven, vegetables chopped, instructions written out for Catherine. She glanced at the clock. Tuesday, which meant it was time. From the pantry, she quickly filled 2 grocery bags. Oatmeal, canned soup, bread, peanut butter. Her hands shook slightly. She knew how this looked. In his study, Jonathan Pierce watched the kitchen security feed on his laptop. His jaw clenched. There it was, evidence. Loretta grabbed her thin coat and headed for the service door. "Have a good evening, ma'am," she called to Catherine. "Loretta." Catherine's voice stopped her. "Take an umbrella. It's supposed to rain." "I'm fine, ma'am. Thank you." Pride. It was the only thing she had left. Outside, the November air bit through her coat. The sky threatened rain. Behind her, Jonathan Pierce grabbed his car keys. He followed. Jonathan Pierce had never followed anyone in his life. But tonight, sitting 3 cars behind on the M15 bus, he felt justified. The private investigator's report sat on his desk at home. Unread. Unnecessary now. He'd catch her himself. Loretta sat near the front of the bus, those 2 grocery bags clutched in her lap. She stared out the window at the rain beginning to fall. She looked tired. More tired than he'd ever noticed. Jonathan pushed the thought away. Thieves were good at looking innocent. That's how they got away with it. The bus lurched downtown, past Midtown, past Union Square, into the Lower East Side. At Houston Street, Loretta stood. Jonathan watched her shuffle toward the exit, bags heavy in her arms. He waited 3 stops, then got off. Doubled back on foot. The temperature had dropped, 29 degrees. The rain turned to freezing sleet. Jonathan pulled his coat tighter. Cashmere, waterproof. $1,200. Loretta's coat was thin. Cotton, probably older than his children. She turned onto a side street near the Bowery. Deserted. dark, the kind of place tourists were warned about. Jonathan's phone was ready. Video recording. Evidence for the lawyers. Loretta walked faster now, almost running. She turned into an alley between two abandoned warehouses. Jonathan reached the alley entrance and stopped. Graffiti covered the walls. Broken glass littered the ground. A dumpster overflowed with garbage. This was it. The meeting spot. She was probably selling the food here. He crept forward, staying in the shadows. Then he heard it. A child's scream, high-pitched, terrified. "She won't wake up! Marco, she won't wake up!" Jonathan froze. More voices, young voices, crying, panicking. What the hell? He moved closer, peering around the dumpster. 4 children huddled against a brick wall under a torn blue tarp, soaking wet, shaking. The smallest, a little girl, maybe 5 years old, lay motionless in the arms of an older boy. Her lips were blue. Her skin was gray. The boy, 12, maybe 13, was crying. "Please wake up. Please. Zoe, please." 2 other children pressed close, a girl clutching a stuffed rabbit, a younger boy coughing violently. They were homeless. All of them. Living in this alley. Loretta burst into view, running despite her bad knees. The grocery bags banged against her sides. "I'm here! Marco, I'm here!" She dropped to her knees in the icy water pooling on the concrete. No hesitation. No concern for her clothes or her joints. She grabbed the small girl, Zoe, and pressed her fingers to the child's neck. "Pulse is weak. She's hypothermic. How long has she been like this?" "I don't know," Marco's voice cracked. "An hour? Maybe more? I tried to keep her warm, but I couldn't." "It's okay, baby. You did good. You did so good." Loretta yanked open the grocery bags, ripped open a container of oatmeal, poured in bottled water, mixed it into a warm paste with her bare hands. She rubbed it on Zoe's tiny feet, her hands, trying to restore circulation without shocking her system. "Shanice, give me your jacket," Loretta commanded. The 9-year-old girl with the rabbit obeyed immediately. Loretta wrapped Zoe tight, pulled the child against her chest. Her own coat came off. She wrapped that around both of them. "DeAndre, come here, all of you. Body heat, now!" The 3 other children pressed close. Loretta's hands moved fast, professional, like she'd done this before. Jonathan stood, paralyzed, his phone still recording, but not for evidence anymore. For proof that he'd been the biggest fool in Manhattan. "Marco, how long have you been out here?" Loretta asked while working. 3 weeks, since the foster home closed. They said they'd find us new places, but..." His voice broke. "They split us up. We ran." Okay, we're going to fix this. I promise." Loretta pulled out her phone. Cracked screen. Battery at 4%. She dialed 911. "I need an ambulance. Corner of Bowery and Delancey. Child in hypothermic shock, maybe 5 years old." She paused, listening. Her face fell. 45 minutes? There's a multi-car pileup? No, I understand, but this child might not have 45... She stopped, took a breath. "Okay, thank you. Yes, I'll wait." She hung up. Looked at Zoe's blue lips, felt her weakening pulse. On Loretta's wrist, a watch caught the streetlight. Old, expensive, Rolex Submariner, vintage. Where did a nanny get a $15,000 watch? Loretta pressed her forehead to Zoe's. "Stay with me, baby girl, stay with me." The little girl's breathing was shallow, irregular. Marco grabbed Loretta's arm. "Miss Loretta, is she going to die?" "Not if I can help it." But Jonathan could see the fear in her eyes. 45 minutes was too long. Zoe didn't have 45 minutes. He stepped out of the shadows. "My car," he said. "Now." Loretta's head snapped up. Shock. Then shame flooded her face. "Mr. Pierce, I can explain..." "Explain later. We're taking her to Presbyterian. Move." For once in 6 years, Loretta Washington didn't argue with her employer. Jonathan didn't wait for a response. He scooped Zoe from Loretta's arms. The child was weightless, terrifyingly light. "The others too," Loretta said, already herding the 3 remaining children. "We can't leave them here." Jonathan wanted to argue. His Mercedes only had 5 seats. Then he looked at Marco's face. The boy's eyes were hollow with fear. "Fine, let's go." They ran. Jonathan in his $1,200 coat carrying a dying child, Loretta in her soaked uniform shepherding 3 homeless kids. The Mercedes was parked 2 blocks away. It felt like 2 miles. Zoe's head lolled against Jonathan's shoulder. Her breathing had gone quiet. Too quiet. "Stay with us, sweetheart," he murmured. He'd never held a child like this. His own kids had nannies for the hard parts. This was different. This was life and death in his arms. The car came into view, black, gleaming. Gerald, Jonathan's driver, saw them coming. The old man's eyes went wide. He jumped out immediately, opened all the doors. "Hospital?" Gerald asked. "Presbyterian. Fast." Gerald's eyes landed on Loretta, then on the watch on her wrist. Something passed across his face. Recognition. The children piled into the back seat. Shanice clutched her stuffed rabbit. DeAndre couldn't stop coughing. Marco kept repeating, "Is she okay?" Jonathan slid in with Zoe. Loretta squeezed beside him. "I've got her," Loretta said, reaching for the child. "I'm fine." "Mr. Pierce, I said I'm fine." But he passed Zoe to her anyway. Loretta knew what she was doing. The car pulled away, smooth, fast. Gerald knew these streets. Loretta kept Zoe pressed against her chest. One hand monitored the pulse, the other rubbed her back in steady circles. "Talk to me, baby," Loretta said softly. "Tell me about your favorite color." Zoe's eyelids fluttered. Her lips barely moved. "Yellow," she whispered. "Like the sun." "That's right, baby. We're going to see lots of sun again soon. You just hold on for me." In the rearview mirror, Gerald's eyes found Loretta's, held them. Jonathan noticed. "Gerald, eyes on the road." "Yes, sir." But Gerald glanced back again, at the watch. Shanice whimpered. "I want my mom." Loretta reached over, squeezed the girl's knee. "I know, sweetheart." "She's in heaven," Marco said quietly. "Mom and Dad, car accident, 2 years ago." Jonathan's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." Marco shrugged. "Foster care was okay, but then they closed our home. Budget cuts. They tried to split us up, but Zoe's my sister. I'm supposed to protect her." His voice cracked. "You did protect her," Loretta said firmly. "You kept her alive until help came. That's what heroes do." "But I couldn't keep her warm." "Marco." Loretta's voice cut through his panic. "Look at me." The boy met her eyes. "You did good. This is not your fault. You're 12 years old. You shouldn't have to be doing this at all." Tears streamed down Marco's face. "How did you find Loretta?" Jonathan asked. "She found us," Marco said. 6 months ago, behind a dumpster near your building. I was looking for food. She gave me a sandwich. Then she came back, every Tuesday and Thursday." Jonathan turned to Loretta. 6 months? Loretta didn't look at him. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped." "Organizations have paperwork," Loretta said quietly. "Paperwork takes time. These children were hungry now." The car wove through traffic. Gerald drove with precision. Aggressive but controlled. They hit a red light. Gerald didn't stop. "Gerald!" Jonathan snapped. "Child's dying, sir. Red lights can wait." Jonathan closed his mouth. Gerald was right. DeAndre's coughing got worse. Deep, wet, rattling. "He needs antibiotics," Loretta said. "Pneumonia, probably." How long have you had that cough? 2 weeks, DeAndre whispered. The free clinic needed a guardian to sign forms, Marco added. Loretta closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, Jonathan saw something fierce there. You have a guardian now, she said. All of you. Shanice looked up. Really? Really? But you don't have room, Marco said. You and your granddaughter share a studio. Jonathan filed that away. A studio apartment. She was barely surviving herself, and she'd been sharing what little she had. We'll figure it out, Loretta said. No. Jonathan surprised himself. We'll figure it out. My father's foundation. We'll find something. Loretta looked at him. The foundation? Charitable giving. I've been too busy to be involved, but... He looked at the children. I'll make time. The hospital appeared ahead. Bright lights. Gerald pulled up to the entrance. Didn't bother parking properly. Jonathan was out first. He opened Loretta's door. She emerged with Zoe. The child had gone completely limp. Her pulse is fading, Loretta said. Go. They ran through the automatic doors. The ER was chaos. Nurses rushing, machines beeping. Jonathan walked straight to triage and dropped his name. Jonathan Pierce, TechStream Solutions. I need a doctor now. This child is hypothermic. The nurse's eyes widened. Mr. Pierce? Yes, right away. Privilege had its uses. Within 30 seconds, a doctor appeared. Dr. Patel, her badge said. She took one look at Zoe and whistled for a gurney. How long is symptomatic? At least 90 minutes, Loretta answered. Maybe longer. Core temperature is dangerously low. Dr. Patel glanced at her. Are you medical? I was, long time ago. Your quick thinking saved her life. Another 30 minutes. She didn't finish. They whisked Zoe away. Loretta tried to follow. A nurse stopped her. Family only. I'm all she has right now. Dr. Patel looked back. Let her through. Loretta disappeared behind the double doors. Jonathan stood with 3 traumatized children and Gerald, who kept staring at the empty hallway. A social worker approached, young, tired, clipboard ready. I'm Ms. Rodriguez, Child Protective Services. 4 unaccompanied minors? Yes, Jonathan said. They've been living on the streets. Ms. Rodriguez sighed. I'll need to place them in emergency foster care. Marco grabbed Jonathan's arm. No, please, they'll split us up. Son, protocol, please! Jonathan looked at Marco, saw his own son superimposed there. What if circumstances had been different? Give me 24 hours, Jonathan said, to find placement, together. Ms. Rodriguez shook her head. Mr. Pierce, I appreciate it, but I'll cover all costs. Housing, food, medical, legal fees, just 1 day. She studied him, then the children. Okay, 24 hours. They will stay in the hospital for observation tonight. Deal. Marco exhaled. 90 minutes crawled by. Dr. Patel finally emerged. Loretta was with her, exhausted, eyes red, but smiling. She's stable, Dr. Patel announced. Core temperature is rising. She's going to make it. Loretta's knees buckled. Jonathan caught her. Easy. She leaned into him briefly, then pulled away. Can we see her? Marco asked. 5 minutes. She needs rest. The children filed into Zoe's room. Shanice laid her rabbit on the bed. Jonathan and Loretta stood outside watching through the window. How long have you been doing this? Jonathan asked. 6 months. Why didn't you tell someone? Loretta turned to him. Her eyes were hard. I did tell someone, Mr. Pierce. I called child services 4 times. No one came. I called outreach groups. They gave me pamphlets. I called churches. Their shelters were full. She crossed her arms. So I stopped calling. I started doing. Jonathan had no response. They stood in silence, watching 4 children hold hands around a hospital bed. Finally, Loretta spoke. "You're going to fire me, aren't you?" Jonathan looked at her. Really looked. Not as the nanny, not as the help, as the woman who'd been doing his job better than he ever had. "No," he said. "I'm going to drive you home. And tomorrow, we're going to talk." The rain had stopped by the time they left the hospital. City lights reflected on wet streets. Manhattan at midnight looked almost peaceful. Loretta sat in the passenger seat of the Mercedes. For the first time in 6 years, she hadn't taken public transit home. Gerald drove in silence, but his eyes kept finding the rearview mirror, looking at her, at the watch. Jonathan broke the quiet. "Loretta, I need to apologize. We thought you were stealing." Loretta's voice was calm. "I know what you thought, Mr. Pierce. I could see it in Mrs. Catherine's eyes. But you never defended yourself. Why?" Loretta turned to him. "Because character isn't something you prove. It's something you live. If I had to explain every move, then what I'm doing isn't kindness. It's reputation management." She paused. "Those children don't care who believes in me. They just need someone coming back." Jonathan felt shame wash over him. "Let me reimburse you," he said, reaching for his wallet. "For the food. And pay for whatever you need. Rent, medical bills. Name an amount." Loretta's hand gently pushed the wallet down. "I don't need payment, Mr. Pierce. Those children aren't a transaction. But you're barely making rent. You're sacrificing your own well-being. My well-being isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in knowing I did the right when I could." Frustration crept into Jonathan's voice. "That watch you're wearing, it's worth more than 6 months' salary. A 1966 Rolex Submariner. Why not sell it and use the money properly?" Loretta's face changed. She looked down at the watch, touched it tenderly. "This watch isn't mine to sell. I'm only keeping it safe." "For who?" Loretta's voice dropped. "For the man who gave it to me. The day he said I saved his life." Silence filled the car. Jonathan leaned forward. "When was this?" "A long time ago. Different life." Loretta changed subjects. "If you want to help, donate to the Coalition for Homeless Youth." The Mercedes pulled up to Loretta's building. Tired apartment complex. Cracked sidewalk, flickering streetlight. Loretta moved to exit. Gerald spoke for the first time. "Ma'am?" His voice was tight. "That watch, is it a 1966 Submariner? With red lettering?" Loretta froze, hand on the door handle. She turned slowly. "Yes. How did you know?" Gerald's eyes glistened. "Because I know exactly 3 men who owned that watch, and 2 of them are dead." Jonathan's confusion spiked. "Gerald, what are you talking about?" Gerald looked at his employer. "Sir, you need to hear a story, but not from me." He turned to Loretta. "From your father." "Your father?" Loretta's voice shook. "Mr. Pierce, who is your father?" Jonathan spoke slowly. "Richard Pierce, founder of TechStream Solutions. He passed away 2 years ago." Color drained from Loretta's face. She gripped the car door, breathing shallow. "Richard Pierce." She sat back down, hand on her chest. "I need a moment. Loretta, you knew my father. How?" She shook her head, tears streaming. "I can't. Not tonight." "That watch was his," Jonathan pressed. "He was wearing it the summer before he started the company. Then it vanished." Loretta's voice cracked. "It wasn't stolen. It was given, as payment for a debt he said could never be repaid." She looked up. "He told me to keep it, sell it if needed, but I couldn't. It felt like letting go of the last good thing I ever did." Gerald spoke again. Ma'am, I worked for Mr. Richard Pierce 32 years. Summer of 1983, I drove him to Brooklyn every Thursday for months. Loretta's eyes widened. Brooklyn? The hospital? Gerald nodded. He was visiting someone. Never said who. But he always came back different. Lighter. Jonathan felt the ground shift. My father went to Brooklyn in 1983? That was the year he almost died. Some emergency. He never told us what. Loretta whispered. It changed mine, too. She reached into her purse, pulled out a worn photograph. She passed it to Jonathan. A young man, mid-20s, gaunt, standing beside a young woman in nurse's scrubs. Brooklyn Hospital in the background. The young man was his father. On the back, to the angel who refused to let me die. R.P. Jonathan's hands trembled. What happened? Loretta's voice was raw. What I did for your father is something I've never told anyone. Not my husband. Not my daughter. Because he made me promise. She met his eyes. But maybe it's time. Come to my office tomorrow, 10 a.m. Whatever happened, I need to understand. Loretta hesitated, then nodded. Okay, not for money, for closure. She stepped out and walked into her building. Jonathan sat stunned, staring at the photograph. Gerald pulled away. Sir? Yes? I need to make a call tonight, to someone who's been looking for this woman 42 years. Jonathan looked up. Who? Your Uncle Charles. Gerald returned home to Queens at 1 in the morning. His house was small, neat, walls covered in photographs. He went straight to a specific album, leather-bound, Pierce Family Archives. He turned to a page marked Summer 1983, The Lost Months. There was a photograph of Richard Pierce, young, broken, standing outside a Brooklyn hospital. Gerald picked up his phone. The call connected after 3 rings. Gerald, it's 1 in the morning. Mr. Pierce, it's about Richard. I found her. The woman from Brooklyn. She's alive. Silence. Are you certain? She has the watch. And the photograph. Where is she? Gerald gave the address. But sir, she doesn't know who you are. Handle this carefully. I'm booking a flight now. The line went dead. Morning came fast. Jonathan arrived at his office at 8, 2 hours before Loretta's appointment. He couldn't sleep, couldn't stop staring at the photograph. His father, young, terrified, grateful. What happened in that hospital? His assistant knocked at 9. Sir, your uncle is here. He's insisting. My uncle? Uncle Charles is in London. Not anymore, sir. The door opened. Charles Pierce walked in. 72, impeccably dressed despite the overnight flight. His eyes were red. Jonathan. His voice thick with emotion. Uncle Charles, what are you doing here? Gerald called last night. He found her. The woman who saved your father's life. Jonathan stood. You know about her? Know about her? We've been looking since 1983. Your father searched until he died. Charles pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping. Brooklyn Daily Eagle, August 15, 1983. Mystery nurse saves drowning man, disappears before thanks. He looked up. That drowning man was your father. Jonathan's world stopped. Drowning? Charles sat heavily. Your father tried to kill himself. Pills and the East River. He was drowning. A young woman in scrubs jumped in after him. His voice broke. She pulled him out. Did CPR. Wouldn't let him die even though the current nearly took her. Jonathan couldn't breathe. Loretta. That was her? That was her. And she's been in your home for 6 years, taking care of your children. Charles wiped his eyes. We've been millionaires because she saved him, and we never knew she was right there. A knock. Jonathan's assistant appeared. Sir, Ms. Washington is here. Charles stood, straightened his jacket. Jonathan's heart pounded. The door opened. Loretta stepped in, wearing her best dress, modest but clean. She froze when she saw Charles. I know you, she whispered. From the photograph. You were Richard's brother. Charles's face crumpled, tears streaming. He crossed the room in 3 steps. And you're the woman who gave me my brother back. Loretta's eyes filled. I did what anyone should do. But you didn't just help, Charles said. You jumped into that river knowing you might die. The current that night was deadly. Loretta's voice was quiet. I'm a strong swimmer, and his life was worth the risk. Jonathan watched, stunned. Charles pulled out legal documents from his briefcase. My brother's will. He left specific instructions if you were ever found. Loretta shook her head. I don't want money for... It's not just money, Charles interrupted. It's a legacy. One only you can fulfill. He opened the will. Let me read to you what Richard wrote 42 years ago. Charles's hands shook as he held the document. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, but the words were clear. He began to read. Last will and testament of Richard Marcus Pierce. Addendum dated August 20th, 1983. Jonathan leaned forward. That date was 2 weeks after the newspaper article. Charles continued. If the woman known to me only as Loretta, last name unknown, nurse at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital is ever located, the following provisions take effect immediately. Loretta's breath caught. Charles looked up. He didn't even know your last name, but he never stopped looking. He returned to the document. Provision 1. Direct payment of $5 million, no strings attached, to be transferred within 72 hours of verification. Loretta's knees went weak. Jonathan guided her to a chair. $5 million? She whispered. Charles kept reading. Provision 2. Full educational trust for any and all family members. Said trust shall cover tuition, housing, books, and living expenses for up to 4 years at any accredited institution. Loretta's hand went to her mouth. Simone. Your granddaughter goes to college, Jonathan said. Anywhere she wants. Charles continued. Provision 3. Loretta shall be offered a position on the board of directors of the Pierce Foundation. Annual salary of $200,000, full benefits, and voting rights on all charitable distributions. Loretta shook her head. I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person in this room, Charles interrupted. You see the need, you act. That's what the foundation should do. He took a breath before reading the final provision. Provision 4. Loretta shall be named director of the Richard Pierce Second Chance Initiative. Endowment of $50 million over 10 years. She shall have full authority over all grant decisions, program development, and operational direction. Mission, mental health services, housing assistance, and life transformation for those in crisis. Silence. $50 million under her control. I can't, Loretta said. I didn't save Richard for money. Taking this makes what I did transactional. Charles set down the will, pulled a chair close and sat. May I tell you what happened? The full story? Loretta nodded through tears. Charles began. In 1983, TechStream was failing. $800,000 in debt. Creditors threatening legal action. We were going to lose everything. He paused. Richard couldn't handle it. 26 years old. He felt like he'd destroyed our family's future. Our parents mortgaged their house to fund us. Charles's voice grew thick. August 14th, 1983. Richard swallowed 2 bottles of sleeping pills. Then he walked to the Brooklyn Bridge and jumped into the East River. Loretta closed her eyes. She remembered. But someone saw him, Charles continued. A young nurse, off duty, walking home from a double shift. He looked at Loretta. You didn't hesitate. Witnesses said you dropped your bag and dove in. The current that night was vicious. Storms upriver. Police said no one should have survived. Loretta's voice was barely audible. I saw someone in pain. You pulled him out. Did CPR on the dock. Breathed life back into him. Rode in the ambulance. Jonathan was hearing this for the first time. His father had tried to kill himself. Charles wasn't done. You stayed with Richard in the hospital 3 days. You weren't assigned to him, weren't on duty, but you came back every shift. Talked him through the darkness. A tear rolled down Charles's cheek. You made him promise to get help, to see a therapist, to call a crisis line when the thoughts returned. You wouldn't leave until he agreed. Loretta nodded. He was so young, so scared. On the 3rd day, Richard tried to give you money. You refused, so he gave you his watch, the only valuable thing he had left. Charles smiled through tears. He said, "This is all I have. Take it. Sell it. Please." Do you remember what you told him? Loretta's voice was steady now. I said, "Keep your watch. Use it to remember that your time matters. You're going to do great things." And he did, Charles whispered. Next year, TechStream's first product launched. Within 5 years, we were worth $100 million. Within 15, $1 billion. He gestured around the office. All of this exists because you jumped into that river. My brother lived to create this company, to marry, to have Jonathan, to become a father and grandfather. Charles looked at Jonathan. Your children exist because of her. The weight settled over the room. Jonathan thought of Ethan, of Lily, their laughter and bright futures. None of it would exist without Loretta. Charles turned back to her. So no, Loretta, this isn't payment. This isn't transactional. This is my brother saying, you gave me everything. Let me help you give others the same gift. He picked up the will again. That $50 million isn't for you. It's for people like those children you've been feeding. For people standing on bridges. For people who need someone to jump in after them. Charles's voice dropped. Richard wanted you to have resources to save others the way you saved him. Not as payment, as a partnership. Loretta looked at the watch on her wrist. She'd worn it 42 years, keeping it safe, keeping the memory alive. The children, she said slowly. Marco and Shanice and DeAndre and Zoe. I could actually help them. Hundreds of them, Jonathan added. Thousands, over 10 years. Loretta stood, walked to the window, looked out over Manhattan. Somewhere down there, children were hungry, scared, alone. She turned back. I have one condition. Charles stood. Name it. 25% of that $50 million goes to mental health services, crisis hotlines, free therapy, so people like Richard, people drowning in darkness, know there's a way out before they reach the bridge. Charles's face broke into a smile. Richard would have loved that. He extended his hand. Loretta took it. Then we have a deal. Jonathan stepped forward. There's one more thing, he said. Not from the will, from me. Loretta turned. You've taken care of my children for 6 years. I've been blind to who you really are. He took a breath. Stay with our family. Not as a nanny, as family director. Oversee our household and guide our charitable giving. Help me teach Ethan and Lily what real kindness looks like. He named the figure. $150,000 per year, Full benefits, company car, flexible hours for the initiative. Loretta stared. You want me to stay? We need you. My children need you. Loretta smiled through tears. I'll stay, but I'm still packing their lunches. That's my favorite part. Jonathan smiled. Deal. A knock at the door. Jonathan's assistant appeared. Sir, Ms. Rodriguez from Child Services is on the line. About the 4 children. Loretta's head snapped up. What about them? Jonathan took the call. Listened. His face darkened. They want to separate them, he said. Not enough foster homes that can take all 4. No. Loretta's voice was steel. Absolutely not. Charles pulled out his phone, made a call. Maria? Charles Pierce, 4 children in emergency foster care. I'm authorizing Pierce Foundation to cover all placement costs. Find them a home. Together. Money is no object. He listened. 48 hours. Perfect. He hung up and looked at Loretta. They'll be placed together. I promise. Loretta exhaled, nodded. She picked up the pen. Then let's sign these papers. We have work to do. The legal team arrived within the hour. 3 lawyers from Pierce Foundation's counsel. Briefcases, tablets, documents that would change Loretta's life. But first, there was someone else who needed to be there. Before we sign anything, Loretta said, I need to call my granddaughter. Jonathan handed her his office phone. Loretta dialed with shaking fingers. Grandma? Simone's voice was worried. Are you okay? You never call during the day. Baby, I need you to come to Manhattan, right now. Take a car. I'm sending the address. A car? Grandma, we can't afford. We can now. Just come, please. 20 minutes later, Simone walked into the office. 16 years old. Brilliant eyes. Columbia t-shirt. She stopped when she saw the room full of men in suits. Grandma? What's going on? Loretta crossed to her, took her hands. Baby, something happened. Something I need to tell you about. She told the story, all of it. The river, the young man, the watch. Simone's eyes grew wider with each word. When Loretta finished, Simone looked at Charles. My grandmother saved your brother's life? She did, Charles said. And now we're trying to return the favor. 42 years late. The head lawyer, a woman named Patricia Carter, opened her briefcase. Ms. Washington, let's go through each provision. Make sure you understand exactly what you're agreeing to. She laid out the first document. The $5 million direct payment, no taxes withheld. We're covering those separately. The money will be in your account within 72 hours. Loretta stared at the number. More money than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. What do I do with it? Whatever you want, Patricia said. Buy a home, invest, save. It's yours. Unrestricted. Simone squeezed her grandmother's hand. Patricia continued. The Educational Trust for Simone. We've structured it to cover any accredited institution. Undergraduate and graduate school if she chooses. Room, board, books, stipend for living expenses. She looked at Simone. Where do you want to go to college? Columbia, Simone whispered. I got accepted early, but we couldn't afford. You can now, Patricia said. She slid forms across the table. We'll have the bursar's office contacted by end of business today. Simone started crying. Loretta pulled her close. You're going to be a doctor, baby, just like you dreamed. Patricia gave them a moment, then moved to the next document. Board position at Pierce Foundation, $200,000 annually. Full benefits include health, dental, vision, life insurance, and retirement contributions. She looked at Loretta. You'd attend quarterly meetings, vote on charitable distributions, help guide our philanthropic strategy. We need your perspective. We need someone who knows what poverty actually looks like. Loretta nodded slowly. I can do that, Good. Patricia pulled out the final, thickest document. Now the big one. Director of the Richard Pierce Second Chance Initiative. $50 million over 10 years. $5 million per year to distribute as you see fit. She opened a marked page. We've established guidelines. Programs must focus on at-risk youth, homelessness intervention, mental health services, or life skills development. But within those parameters, you have complete authority. Loretta leaned forward. Complete authority? Yes. You decide which organizations receive funding. You decide grant amounts. You approve programs. You hire staff. This is your operation. Patricia smiled. Mr. Richard Pierce was very specific in his will. He wrote, Loretta understands need in a way that privileged people never can. Trust her judgment. Don't micromanage. Let her work. Charles nodded. My brother knew what he was doing. Jonathan spoke for the first time in minutes. Loretta, I have something to add. It's not from my father's will. It's from me. He stood. You've been taking care of my children for 6 years, and I've been too blind to see who you really are. Not just to them, but to everyone you touch. He took a breath. I want you to stay with our family, not as a nanny, as family director. You'd oversee our household, yes, but also guide our personal charitable giving. Help me teach Ethan and Lily what real kindness looks like. He named a figure. $150,000 per year. Full benefits. Company car so you never take the subway in rain again. And flexible hours so you can run the initiative. Loretta stared at him. You want me to stay? I'm asking you to stay. We need you. My children need you. Loretta looked at Simone, at Charles. The documents spread across the table. I'll stay, she said quietly. But I'm still packing their lunches. That's my favorite part. Jonathan smiled. Deal. Patricia began organizing signature pages, but Loretta held up a hand. Wait. Before I sign, those 4 children from last night. Marco, Shanice, DeAndre, Zoe. What happens to them? Jonathan and Charles exchanged glances. Ms. Rodriguez from Child Services is working on placement, Jonathan said. Not good enough. Loretta's voice was firm. I want them placed together, in a good home, with people who love them. Charles pulled out his phone, made a call. Maria, Charles Pierce. I need a favor. 4 children in emergency foster care. I'm sending you the case number. Pierce Foundation will cover all placement costs. Find them a home, together. Money is no object. He listened. Good. Keep me updated. He hung up and looked at Loretta. They'll be placed within 48 hours, I promise. Loretta picked up the pen. Then let's do this. She signed. Page after page, her hand cramping by the end. When she finished, Patricia collected the documents. Congratulations, Ms. Washington. You're now one of the most powerful people in New York philanthropy. Loretta looked at the watch on her wrist, the one she'd kept safe for 42 years. Richard, she whispered, I hope I make you proud. Charles heard her. You already have, he said. You gave him 41 extra years of life. Everything that came after was bonus time. Time with his family. Time to build something meaningful. He paused. Time to write a will that would change your life the way you changed his. Simone hugged her grandmother tight. What happens now? Loretta smiled. Now, we get to work. She looked at Jonathan. Can I use your phone? I need to call Ms. Rodriguez about those children, and then I need to start making a list of every shelter, every program, every organization that needs help. She stood. For the first time in years, her shoulders didn't hurt. The weight she'd been carrying had lifted. Let's change some lives. Week 1. Loretta and Simone stood in their new apartment doorway. 3 bedrooms. Safe neighborhood. Simone had her own room for the first time in 6 years. "Is this real?" she whispered. Loretta squeezed her hand. "It's real, baby." The next morning, Loretta walked into her new office, 12th floor, Pierce Foundation headquarters. Nameplate on the door, Loretta Washington Director, Richard Pierce, Second Chance Initiative. She sat at her desk, made her first call. "Coalition for Homeless Youth? This is Loretta Washington. I'm approving $500,000. New shelter, 50 beds. Can you do it?" Stunned silence. Then, "Yes, absolutely." "Good. Contracts come today, week 2. Week. The New York Times ran the story. The nanny who saved a billionaire, 40 years later, her reward. 20 million views in 3 days. Local news wanted interviews. Loretta accepted Channel 7. What does it feel like going from poverty to wealth overnight? Loretta looked at the camera. The wealth isn't in my bank account. It's helping children who were exactly where I was, scared, alone, invisible. She paused. If you see someone struggling, don't wait. You be the help. The clip went viral. Comments flooded in. This woman is a hero. Faith in humanity restored. Week 3. Marco, Shanice, DeAndre, and Zoe were placed together. Gerald and his wife Rose took them. Certified foster parents. They had room and love. Loretta visited their first night. Zoe ran to her. "Miss Loretta, I have my own bed." Marco pulled Loretta aside. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Loretta handed him a card. His name was embossed. "What's this?" "Your business card. You're a youth ambassador for the initiative. When you're ready, help me decide which programs get funded. You know what kids need." Marco stared at the card, started crying. "I'm somebody now." "You were always somebody," Loretta said. "Now the world knows it." Week 4. The bridge program launched, named after the Brooklyn Bridge where Richard nearly died. Mission: mental health crisis intervention, job training, housing. 30 people in the first cohort. Loretta met each one personally, learned their names. One man asked, "Why are you doing this?" Loretta showed him the watch. "Someone gave me this 42 years ago. A man I saved from drowning. He said my time was valuable." She looked at him. "Your time is valuable too. Let's prove it." Month 3. Simone started Columbia. Loretta helped her move into the dorm, made the bed. "Remember where you came from," Loretta said. "But don't let it define where you're going." Simone hugged her. "I'll make you proud, Grandma." "You already have, baby." Month 6. The numbers came in. 347 children were housed. 1,200 meals are served daily. 89 families in permanent housing. 4,500 volunteer hours. 12 new mental health crisis centers. The board met to review. Charles presented the data. In 6 months, Loretta accomplished what we failed to do in 10 years. Jonathan added, "She doesn't just give money, she gives dignity." Loretta spoke to the board. "Stop calling them the homeless. Call them people without homes. Stop saying at-risk youth. Say children who need help." She paused. "Language shapes how we see people. How we see them shapes how we help." Silence. Then applause. Month 12. CNN aired a feature. The Woman Who Jumped, a year later. 17 million viewers. The next morning, Pierce Foundation received 847 calls. People wanting to volunteer, to donate, to help. Loretta was invited to give a TED Talk. She titled it, "The Currency of Compassion." Standing ovation. The statistics scrolled on screen behind her. 4,200 people helped. 17 programs were funded. 12 shelters opened. 23 people from the bridge program stably housed with jobs. Good Morning America interviewed her. "What's next?" the host asked. Loretta smiled. "More children, more families, more second chances." She looked directly at the camera. "Because everyone deserves someone who'll jump in after them." Marco appeared on screen beside her. Now 13, confident. "Miss Loretta taught me that your past doesn't write your future. You do." Gerald's voice from off-camera. "I drove a great man for 32 years. Now I drive a great woman. My job hasn't changed. I still serve someone who changes lives." The segment ended with footage of Loretta's alley. The abandoned space now had a mural, "Where kindness changed everything." And every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m., Loretta was still there, always with extra sandwiches. 1 year later. November evening. Same alley where it all began. The temperature had dropped to 31 degrees, light snow falling. But the alley looked different now. The abandoned warehouse was gone. In its place stood a 3-story building. Warm lights glowing from every window. A sign above the entrance, "Loretta's Place, Youth Resource Center." 200 people gathered for the dedication ceremony. Community members, city officials, families the foundation had helped. Loretta stood beside the bronze plaque being unveiled. "In honor of Loretta Washington, who taught us that one person's kindness can change the world." Jonathan spoke to the crowd. "A year ago, I followed this woman thinking she was a thief. Instead, I discovered she was the richest person I'd ever met. Rich in character, in compassion, in courage." Applause filled the alley. Charles stepped forward next. "My brother spent 42 years looking for his angel. Turns out she was taking care of his grandchildren the whole time." He wiped his eyes. Richard would be so proud. Loretta was asked to speak. She stepped to the microphone, looked at the faces before her. "I'm not special," she began. "I just chose to really see the people everyone else walked past." She paused. "That's all it takes. Attention, compassion, and the courage to care when it's inconvenient." As she spoke, a small figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. A young girl, maybe 7 years old, thin coat, no gloves, shivering. Loretta's eyes found her immediately. She stopped mid-sentence, excused herself from the microphone, walked directly to the girl. The crowd watched in silence. "Hi, sweetheart," Loretta said softly. "Are you cold?" The girl nodded. Loretta removed her own coat, wrapped it around the child. "What's your name?" "Emma." "Emma, I'm Loretta, and I'm going to make sure you're warm tonight, I promise." She pulled out her phone, called the foundation's emergency line. "I need a family specialist at my location. Now." She sat on the ground beside Emma, held her hand. "Are you hungry?" Emma nodded again. From her bag, Loretta produced a sandwich. Always prepared, always ready. The girl ate while Loretta waited with her. Jonathan watched from the stage, smiled. Simone, home from Colombia for the weekend, stood beside him. "That's my grandma," she said. "She can't help herself." "Thank God for that," Jonathan replied. Within 10 minutes, a foundation van arrived. A caseworker emerged. Loretta walked Emma to the van, made sure she was settled, safe. "I'll check on you tomorrow," Loretta promised. "You're not alone anymore." Emma's small voice. "Why are you helping me?" Loretta knelt down, eye level. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing. And someone helped the person who helped me. That's how light spreads, baby. One kindness at a time." The van drove away. Loretta returned to the ceremony. The crowd burst into applause. They'd witnessed exactly who she was. Later that night, Loretta stood alone in the alley, now called Loretta's Alley. She looked at the watch on her wrist. The the Rolex that had traveled 42 years. "I hope I made you proud, Richard," she whispered. A voice behind her. "He is proud." She turned. Charles stood there. "And so am I." He handed her an envelope. "What's this?" "More requests. More families who need help. Your work is never done." Loretta smiled. "Good. I wouldn't know what to do with myself otherwise." She looked up at the building, at the warm lights, at the place where desperation had turned into hope. "Time is all we have," she said. "The question is, what will we do with it?" Charles nodded. Together they walked toward the light. Loretta's story reminds us that kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about seeing someone in need and choosing to act. You don't need wealth to change a life. You need attention. You need compassion. You need the courage to care when it's inconvenient. This week, look around. Really see the people you pass. The tired cashier, the struggling parent, the person who seems invisible. What would happen if you chose kindness? Not for recognition, not for reward, but because it's right. If this story moved you, share it. Let's create a world where stories like Loretta's aren't rare. They're everywhere. Hit like if you believe one person can make a difference. Subscribe for more stories of everyday heroes. And most importantly, be the kindness someone needs today, because you never know. The life you save might change history, or it might just be your own.